There was a long-held belief in the anime community that no matter how good an adaptation may be, the manga will always be better. And visually at least, this makes sense. A manga is drawn a few pages at a time by a lone author and their assistants, with each panel leaving space for more detailed artwork than can realistically be achieved in motion. This situation was made worse by scheduling, with a lot of anime being broadcast perpetually as opposed to the more modern seasonal model. But in the last couple decades, things have gradually changed as the industry grew, until in 2019, a seemingly innocuous manga about slaying demons received an adaptation by the critically acclaimed animation studio Ufotable, and its 19th episode broke the internet. Ever since then, there's been an increasing trend of anime going above and beyond what was presented in the manga. Right now, we might be living in the era of superior adaptations. So how did we get here? Well, there are many types of anime, and I'm going to be focusing on shows that are based on manga, since movies and original series have historically been seen as high quality. But for the longest time, most popular manga adaptations would air continuously, week after week for years at a time. Examples include Dragon Ball, Yu Yu Hakusho, and the Big Three, of which One Piece still airs weekly to this day. We'll be coming back to this one later. But this model brought on a number of production issues. The studios only had 1 week to work on each episode, leading to lackluster animation at times. And the anime couldn't catch up to the manga, or it would run out of story, so filler was implemented to pad for time. There's a famous skit in Gintama that explains this issue, and the solution the studios have to come up with to circumvent it. Ironically, this scene too was filler. One such show was Fullmetal Alchemist, which had an initial adaptation by Studio Bones in 2003, while the manga was still ongoing. Due to filler, its story diverted so far from the source material they ended up having completely different endings. That isn't to say the show was bad. The original adaptation is regarded as being great in its own right, but in 2009, with the manga seemingly drawing to a close, Bones picked up the story again for a truly faithful remake. What they ended up making would go down in history as one of the greatest manga adaptations of all time. In my opinion, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood was the first anime to match the expectations of its manga, and fans seem to agree, as 15 years later, it is still consistently cited as one of the greatest anime of all time. Since then, most new series have been running on a seasonal release schedule. Brotherhood may not have been the first to do this, but it showed that an all-killer, no-filler mindset was a recipe for success. And for an adaptation to truly outdo the manga, you need more than just good animation. Music, voice acting, and art direction can all elevate the show's quality. So in 2019, Demon Slayer released, and blew expectations out of the water. Its first season was so well received that manga sales exploded shortly after, as it became the first series in decades to outsell One Piece. This trend continued into the 2020s, as the pandemic hit, and anime's global popularity began to skyrocket, leading to more profits and more high-quality projects than ever before. It's not just Demon Slayer anymore. So many anime that come out today have scenes or entire episodes that go far beyond the impact they had in the manga. But before I get carried away with all these examples, let's go over what made Demon Slayer stand out in the first place. My experience with Demon Slayer was a little odd. I was a few months late to the party and had heard friends raving about it for months, so I was a little confused when I started the show, and the first episodes didn't really grab my attention. Encountering the main villain so early was an interesting move, but the rest of the story was very by the book. I kept going though because the intro, Gurenge, was so good I was convinced there had to be more to it than this, and I was right. I'd heard whispers of the mythical episode 19, but nothing could have prepared me for the peak that was about to unfold. The animation, the music, the acting, the art direction. It all came together in such a beautiful way that I just couldn't stop myself from crying. I of course went on to read the manga like so many others, and it was alright. A very average story, but nowhere near bad enough to warrant multiple hour-long video essays dunking on it. That being said, I kept thinking to myself, I can't wait to see this animated. And I wouldn't have to wait long because the sequel movie came out just a year later and continued this high quality throughout. But sadly, I didn't cry at the Rengoku scene because I'd already done so reading the manga. Sorry, King. Oh yeah, this cut was cool though. Season 3 was probably my favorite arc when reading the manga, so my expectations were high, and the anime met them at least, but didn't exceed them like with previous seasons, so I was prepared to walk away a little underwhelmed. until this happened. Oh my god. I remember watching this in call with a friend and being unable to put my thoughts into words for a few minutes, but I distinctly remember saying, this is what I live for. Season 4 was a less memorable arc for me, so I don't really have much to report on. Hold up, what's happening? Never mind, I guess I forgot about that scene. Season 5 was hard to make exciting, as it's basically a training arc. The Bollywood-style editing for Muzan's entry though was crazy. And the following scene set up the movie in an explosive way. As for the new movie, it's not out on digital yet, so I'll hold back on reviewing it in case anyone hasn't seen it in cinemas. This begs the question though, why did Ufotable continue to put this much effort into future seasons when they already had a guaranteed hit that people would still tune in for no matter the quality? I mean, just look at what happened to One Punch Man. You would not believe the state of the subreddit right now. I believe this is due to a recent phenomenon that I call the positive feedback loop. Historically, studios have often opted to basically do the bare minimum, either to maximize budget efficiency or because they viewed the anime as just an advertisement for the manga. But somewhere down the line, the studios realized something. If an adaptation is good, and I mean really good, the series will gain a bunch of new fans. Sales of the manga and the anime will go up, leading to higher profits and more budget for future seasons, starting the loop again. This effect is twofold, as some fans may be so inspired by the anime that they decide to become animators themselves. More creative minds working for the studios will also lead to even better adaptations. This phenomenon is so far-reaching that studios are now bringing on talented fans from around the world. One such example is a little-known French guy, who you might know as Vincent Chansard. Vincent became known online for high-quality fan animations, and graduated from France's premier animation school, Gobelin, in 2019. Funny enough, one of these was for Demon Slayer, an animation exercise that he considered unfinished. But this clip went viral, gathering millions of views across various platforms. Evidently, he caught the industry's attention, as shortly after, he posted this little bit of foreshadowing. Fast forward to today, and Vincent is responsible for some of the most iconic cuts in anime airing right now, especially One Piece. I didn't even realize I used 2 of his examples in my previous video until later, and it's not just him. Dozens of animators from around the world have gone from fan animations to working on mainstream anime episodes. This is another side effect of the pandemic, as it popularized working from home, or even internationally. Today, anime production is a global industry, and I think animators' work is underappreciated, as it has brought the animation medium to new heights. Passion is worth more than any budget at the end of the day. On the topic of One Piece, let's use it as our next example. One Piece used to be a notoriously poor adaptation, even among its peers, and it still airs as a weekly series to this day. So what changed, beyond the feedback effect that I mentioned earlier? Well, One Piece's approach to filler used to be terrible, dragging out every scene as long as possible. And if anything dramatic happened, you'd get a compilation of still images, forcing us to watch every character's reaction. But the One Piece anime changed dramatically from 2019 onwards. Funnily enough, around the time Demon Slayer started outselling it, the art style was altered, substituting detail for a higher frame count, and a number of passionate new animators and directors were brought on, like Vincent I mentioned earlier and Megumi Ishitani, just to name a few. Nowadays, the anime adds entire bonus scenes and extends fight sequences, fleshing out the original story instead of stretching it. So you'd assume that now, the anime would be more respected by the manga diehards. Not the case. In some ways, the rift is now wider than ever, as the style is considered over the top and tells a different story to the manga, with fight scenes adding aura that isn't supposed to exist, and people still begging for a seasonal adaptation so we get more story shown in each episode. Don't get me wrong, this is a vast improvement to what we had before, but it's still divisive. Speaking of divisive adaptations, I went over this in more detail with the previous video, but Chainsaw Man might be the first case of an adaptation being too good. MAPPA acquired the sole rights to adapt the anime, a high-risk, high-reward strategy allowing for complete creative freedom while being fully responsible for the funding. But they barely broke even, due to the adaptation being too much of a departure from the manga. Us Chainsaw fans are lucky that the CEO is such a huge fan of Fujimoto that the adaptation is continuing out of sheer passion. But the fandom was split about the change of art style and director to appeal to the fans who didn't like it. Anime diehards were skeptical of the upcoming Reze movie, at least until the trailer dropped.
Yeah, I'll be the judge of that. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be alright. Before I start to wrap this up, I want to go over some other examples of recent shows that have stood out to me. Bocchi the Rock was a simple young coma about a socially anxious guitarist, but it became a hit overnight, making $1 bajillion in Blu-ray sales. The beautiful character animation, detailed performance scenes, and hilarious visual gags instantly made it a modern classic. Dandadan oozes with style and creativity, making it one of the most visually distinct anime currently airing, and taking full advantage of the animation medium. Mob Psycho's author, One, is famous for his quote-unquote bad art, but the anime not only managed to stay true to his sketchy art style, it used the simple line work to its advantage, to maximize the frame budget in action scenes. Frieren was already famous for its heartfelt story and deep themes, and this was only heightened by the subtle character acting that can only be achieved in motion. The action scenes absolutely slapped as well. And then we have Jujutsu Kaisen. As a battle manga with a heavy focus on its power system, it can be very wordy, even during combat. This is a trait it shares with Hunter x Hunter, another power system heavy manga. The anime, however, makes all of this much easier to consume by combining the voiceover with visual demonstration. Season 2 went even further than this, even adding in bonus content like One Piece. The Maharaga fight was like one chapter in the manga, but the anime added so much to make him feel like a truly daunting opponent. But this does beg the question, how much will the JJK adaptation change going forward, considering the later arcs of the manga were not exactly well received? Which brings me on to one last point. Ending a manga is hard, even more so these days as series have more eyes on them than ever, all with different expectations. And so, a recent dynamic has developed, where fans who weren't satisfied with the manga pray that the anime adaptation will somehow make it better. This is most evident with Attack on Titan, probably the most infamous example in recent times. But now, people are bringing this MAPPA Pls Fix mindset to JJK as well. Whether that's fair is up to you, since on one hand it lets authors revise some details, but forces even more work on the animation teams, which begs some final questions. Is this model sustainable? Higher quality adaptations are all well and good, but right now, animators are more overworked than ever. Studios are seeing the influx of new talent and passion, but instead of adding people to existing teams, they're seeing this as an opportunity to take on even more work. Chainsaw Man fans have been begging for a second season, but MAPPA said, "Best I can do is 3 random originals, cozy cooking isekai, and a story about an overworked animator." Huh. Another unintended consequence would be giving manga authors a fix-it-in-post mindset, where manga will be seen as just the pre-production stage for anime. But I'd say AI developments are a much bigger threat to the industry than that, so while things look good for now, one can only hope that we keep living in the era of superior adaptations. Hey, thanks for watching the whole video. This was a much bigger topic and required a lot more effort than I was expecting, so it means a lot that you'd stick around for the whole thing. If you enjoyed it, then I'd appreciate any likes, comments, but especially shares would help right now. But if you want to see more stuff from me, then feel free to subscribe and check out my other videos. That's all I have to say for now, so until next time, see ya.